So, when an AI makes a decision that affects your life, how can you be sure it's fair, right? That's the huge question. Today, we're not just going to talk about AI. We're going to architect it. We're going to build the essential framework for AI systems we can actually trust, especially when the stakes are super high. Okay, let's get into it.
Just imagine this for a second. You apply for a loan. Maybe it's for a house, a small business, whatever, and a computer just says no. But why? Was it a fair call based on your finances, or did some kind of hidden bias in the algorithm just work against you? And look, this isn't science fiction. This is a real problem that needs a real solution right now.
Because in these critical areas, we're talking credit, finance, even medicine. A simple, it works most of the time, just doesn't cut it, not even close. We need a way to build fairness and transparency and accountability right into the AI from the get-go. And that's really the heart of AI governance. It's about giving these systems, well, a conscience.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the trust problem itself, then we'll lay out a blueprint for how to design this stuff responsibly. We'll peek inside the governance toolbox, see how to keep models from going stale over time, and then we'll put it all together into a pipeline and a really practical checklist. So for the next few minutes, think of yourself as a responsible AI architect.
First up, let's define the core challenge here. A lot of powerful AI models can act like black boxes. We feed data in, we get an answer out. But what happens in the middle can be a total mystery. And without proper governance, those hidden processes can really easily pick up and even amplify human biases, creating some pretty major risks. So, how do we even start to build that trust? Well, it kicks off with something that sounds almost too simple: documentation. Before we build a single thing, we need a clear blueprint. And this documentation, it's the absolute foundation for every single responsible AI system. Let's see how that foundation gets built.
The very first tool in our blueprint is something called a model card. Think of it like a spec sheet or nutrition label for an AI model. It's a short, easy-to-read document that tells you exactly what the model is for, how well it works, what its limits are, and, this is the important part, how it was tested for fairness. It's all about creating transparency before you even think about putting it into production. And this is just such a great way to think about it. You wouldn't hire an employee without looking at their resume, would you? The model card is literally the AI's resume. It lets everyone involved, from the developers to the business folks, understand what the model is actually good at and decide if it's the right hire for a high-stakes job like approving loans. Okay, so we've got our blueprint. Now it's time to open up the toolbox. These are the active tools we're going to use to inspect, to stress test, and to make sure our model is both safe and fair before it ever sees a real person's data.
Now, the really important thing to catch here is that this is all about outcomes. Bias testing isn't just about scanning the code, it's about looking at the results. So in our loan scenario, this means we are actively checking. Is the model saying no way more often to people from a specific zip code or gender, even if their financial profiles look pretty similar?
Exactly. This is the whole point, right? We're moving beyond just making sure the model is accurate, and we're making sure it's equitable. The goal is to build a system that is totally blind to demographics and is laser-focused on the stuff that actually matters financially. It's how we stop AI from just repeating the same old biases that might be hiding in the data it was trained on. Okay, so we've tested for bias. Great. But what happens when the model makes a decision? We still need to understand why. And that's the job of explainable AI, or XAI. Think of these as the tools that crack open that black box and turn a super complex calculation into a reason we can actually understand. And this brings us right back to the beginning, full circle. Remember that person who got denied a loan? With XAI, we can actually tell them why. We can say, your application was denied because your debt-to-income ratio was too high. It's no longer a mystery. It gives people clarity, it builds trust, and it gives them something they can actually act on. But, and this is a big but, our job as an architect doesn't just stop at launch. The world is always changing, and an AI model that was perfect yesterday might be totally wrong tomorrow. So governance has to be an ongoing thing, which means we have to be monitoring our models all the time. This breakdown over time is what we call model drift. I mean, just think about it. A model that was trained on economic data from before the pandemic, it's probably not going to be very good at predicting loan defaults in today's economy, right? If we're not watching for this drift, our model's accuracy and fairness can just silently fade away. And there are two key types you gotta watch for. First, there's data drift. This is pretty straightforward. It's when the input data itself changes. Maybe average income suddenly dropped, for example.
Then there's concept drift, which is a little sneakier. This is when the relationships between things change. So maybe having a certain job used to be a great predictor of paying back a loan, but now, because of changes in that industry, it's not. You have to monitor for both.
So we've got our blueprint, we've got our tools. Now, let's put it all together. See, responsible AI isn't something you just tack on at the end. It's not an afterthought. It's an automated system that you build right into the development process from day one.
A truly responsible pipeline automates all these steps. So every single time a developer trains a new model, the system automatically generates a model card, runs it through a whole bunch of fairness checks, makes sure its decisions can be explained, and then, once it's deployed, it gets plugged into a monitoring system to watch for drift. Responsibility is built in, not bolted on.
All right, let's bring this all home. We can turn everything we've talked about into a practical, actionable framework you can actually use. This is the go-to checklist every responsible AI architect should have handy.
These are really the big questions you need to ask. Do we have a model card? Check. Have we run our fairness tests? Check. Can we explain the why behind its decisions? Do we have a plan to watch for drift? And finally, this one is so important. Who actually has control over this model? If you can say yes to all of these, you are on a very solid path. And this right here is the key takeaway. Some people look at all this governance stuff and think it's just red tape that slows everything down, but that's completely backwards. Good governance is what gives us the confidence to use AI in these really important high-impact areas. It is not a barrier, it's the foundation of trust.
Look, at the end of the day, architecting AI responsibly isn't about restricting it, it's about enabling it. It's about building the guardrails that let us finally move on from asking, can we build it, to proving we can trust it. So the real question is, how will you use this blueprint to build that trust?